I mean, the crucial point of confusion is that we have been sold this meme of Islamophobia, where every criticism of the doctrine of Islam gets conflated with bigotry toward Muslims as people.
Right.
And that is it's intellectually ridiculous. Even it gets
So hold on, are
conflated with
you
racism.
the person who understands the officially codified doctrine of Islam? You're the interpreter of that, so you can say, well, this is.
I'm actually well educated on this topic.
I'm asking you. So you're saying if I criticize you're saying that Islamophobia is not a real thing. That if you're critical of something,
well, it's not a real thing when we do it.
Right.
Well, no,
it really isn't.
I'm not denying that certain people are bigoted against Muslims as people.
Right.
And that's a problem.
Big of you.
But
why are you so hostile about this
because it's gross. It's racist.
It's not. But it's so not.
It's like saying those stateless, shifty Jew.
You're not listening
Absolutely
to
not.
what we are saying.
You guys are saying if you want to be liberals, believe in liberal principles like freedom of speech, like we are endowed by our forefathers with an inalienable rights, like all men are created equal.
Ben, we have to be able to criticize bad ideas. And
of course we do. No liberal doesn't want to criticize bad ideas.
But Islam at this moment is the motherlode of bad ideas.
Jesus.
So we have
That's
ideas
just a fact.
like blasphemy.
It is
it's an ugly thing.
Apostasy.
It is
one basic liberal
let me
principle
unpack
is
it.
tolerance.
Let me unpack it.
My one question is basically, or my one comment, or passing comment, is that so many times you've brought up women in Islam. I'd just like to correct that I've read the Quran, and all Muslim scholars would agree with me that Islam gives women a lot of rights. We over and over give women in Islam through the Quran. I may not say it through individuals who preach the religion, but Islam through the Quran gives women a lot of rights, and I need that to be heard. I need that to everyone to understand and hear that. I mean, I am a young Muslim woman myself. I sit before you, I have a voice, and I can speak to you, and I can look you in the eye, and I do have my rights. And when I go to Iran, I'm actually Iranian as well, so when I go to Iran, I also have my rights. I need it to be heard that the Quran, Allah, Subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us our rights. People, individuals in countries, and people who represent our religion may not, and they may do the wrong thing to sort of stand in front and show us religion and preach us religion, but Islam does.
All right, we're going to take that as a comment, a very passionate one at that. Okay.
Well, no, we're not. No, we're not going to take it as a comment. I can see your face, I can see your hair, and I can see you sitting in an audience with young gentlemen. Don't you tell me you can do any of that in Iran.
I can, though.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No, you cannot.
I can. In Iran, in the Islamic Republic of Iran, where I have been, my hair would be out. My hair would be out because my veil would be little. My hair would be, it may be covered a little bit, but just like in the Bible, in the letter to the Corinthians, it says to cover your head, to be modest.
It's a shame she spoiled what could have been a perfectly good statement.
All right, okay, I'm sorry.
Modesty would be there. I mean, you've been talking about these cheap jokes and things
say
throughout this whole conversation, but you're the only one making the cheap comments.
You insult your sisters in Tehran who are being beaten.
Astaghfirullah,
Who are being beaten and raped every day when you say that they have their rights in the Islamic Republic. It's an insult to the women of Iran.
I do not. Astaghfirullah.
Very useful. My name is Jumana Imad Musa Ahmed Al-Bahri, and I'm a student here at UCSD. I was reading your literature. I found that much more interesting than the talk. And I found some interesting things about the MSA, which is an organization that's very active on campus, and it is hosting our annual Hitler Youth Week. You should come out to those events. If you could clarify the connection between the MSA and jihad terrorist networks, because last I checked, we had to do our own fundraising, and we never get help from anyone. So if you could clarify the connection between UCSD's MSA, or if you don't have such information, if you could connect other MSAs on UCs, because the connection wasn't too clear in the pamphlet. Just if you could clarify.
Okay. Will you condemn Hamas here and now?
I'm sorry, what?
Will you condemn Hamas?
Would I condemn Hamas?
As a terrorist genocidal organization?
Are you asking me to put myself on a cross?
So you won't. I actually have had this experience many times. You didn't read the pamphlet because the pamphlet is chapter and verse. The main connection is that the MSA is part of the Muslim Brotherhood Network as revealed in the documents.
I don't think you understood what I meant by that. I meant if I say something, I'm sure that I will be arrested for reasons of Homeland Security. So if you could please just answer my question.
If you condemn Hamas, Homeland Security will arrest you?
If I support Hamas, because your question forces me to condemn Hamas. If I support Hamas, I look really bad.
If you won't condemn Hamas, obviously you support it. Case closed. I've had this experience, I had this experience at UC Santa Barbara where there were 50 members of the Muslim Students Association sitting right in the rows there. And throughout my hour talk, I kept asking them, will you condemn Hezbollah and Hamas? And none of them would. And then when the question period came, the president of the Muslim Students Association was the first person to ask questions. And I said, before you start, will you condemn Hezbollah? And he said, well, that question is too complicated for a yes-no answer. So I said, okay, I'll put it to you this way. I'm a Jew. The head of Hezbollah has said that he hopes that we will gather in Israel so he doesn't have to hunt us down globally. For it or against it?
For it.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and showing everybody what's here.
Muslim, I'm not any religion at all. But it bothered me when you were talking about Islam being not a religion of peace. Muhammad was a very peaceful man.
No, he wasn't.
Yes, well, if you read,
No,
yes,
no.
and he had a great respect for women. His wives were given a great deal of power over him. And
have you been reading Karen Armstrong? Is that where this is coming from?
No, I've read Karen Armstrong, but no. And, what's happening now with Islam is it's bastardized, just like all the other religions. But it bothers me that you
So you're saying the true Islam, if we could only return to it, would just nullify all of my concerns about Islam?
I don't think any religion is a good religion, but it bothers me that you singled Islam out, and that you said that that actually that Muhammad was a peaceful man.
Okay,
and
well,
that
Muhammad, who knows who Muhammad was? I mean, Muhammad's actually closer to history than Jesus and many of the other patriarchs, so we know more about him. But obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty about what's factual. But the example of Muhammad, as held in Islam universally, is not of a pacifist. He was a conquering warlord who spread the faith with the sword quite successfully. And the expectation is this is a way of being in the world that is by example totally justified. Now this is different from Jesus. Jesus did not spread the faith with a sword. He was essentially a hippie who got crucified. Now that's a different example, and it's a difference that is a benefit to Christianity at the moment, because Christianity, in Christianity, you can come up with a rationale for saying, listen, it's not about conquering the world. It's not about winning in this life. We just got to wait for Jesus to come back and get raptured. But you can't really do that in Islam. Christianity has a line like, render unto God that which is God, and unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. And that line from Matthew, has done huge work to separate Christianity from claim upon terrestrial power. Now, it's imperfect work, and there are a lot of crazy Christians who want terrestrial power, but at least there's some rationale within Christianity for doing that. That rationale doesn't exist in Islam. There's no line in the Quran which says, listen, guys, this is not about politics. It's not about controlling people's lives. You can be privately religious and let everyone else flourish.
But the subjugation of women was not something that Muhammad was
interested in. You're just not. Please just go read the Quran and read some significant. Okay, well then surely you read the part in the Quran which talked about husbands scourging or whipping, depending on the translation, their wives who are disobedient. Now,
that's in Judaism also.
What was that? Okay, okay, so it's in Judaism, but I will grant you that the worst books ever written were in the Old Testament. Okay, but there's a reason why Jews are not stoning their wives for adultery at this moment in history, and we can talk about those reasons. What I said about Islam was intended to counter exactly the presuppositions you are now bringing to me. I don't have time to do it here, but I can only invite you to read more on the subject, because we are deluding ourselves with a lot of wishful thinking. I mean, we are desperate to believe that all of the problems in the world are of our own making. If we could just spread more money around and behave better on the global stage, people will treat us well.
I am here to ask you a simple question. I know that we portray Islam and all Muslims as bad, but there's 1.8 billion Muslim followers of Islam. We have 8 million plus Muslim Americans in this country, and I don't see them represented here. But my question is, how can we fight an ideological war with weapons? How can we ever end this war? The jihadist ideology that you talk about, it's an ideology. How can you ever win this thing if you don't address it ideologically?
Great question. I am so glad you're here, and I am so glad you brought that up because it gives us an opportunity to answer. What I find so amazing is since the beginning of this panel, which we are here about Benghazi attack against our people, not one person mentioned Muslims. We are here against Islam, or we're launching war against Muslims. We are here to discuss how 4 Americans died and what our government is doing. We were not here to bash Muslims. You were the one who brought up the issue about most Muslims, not us. And since you brought it up, allow me to elaborate with my answer. There are 1.2 billion Muslims in the world today. Of course, not all of them are radicals. The majority of them are peaceful people. The radicals are estimated to be between 15 to 25%, according to all intelligence services around the world. That leaves 75% of them peaceful people. But when you look at 15 to 25% of the world Muslim population, you're looking at 180 million to 300 million people dedicated to the destruction of Western civilization. That is as big of the United States. So why should we worry about the radicals, 15 to 25%? Because it is the radicals that kill. Because it is the radicals that behead and massacre. When you look throughout history, when you look at all the lessons of history, most Germans were peaceful. Yet the Nazis drove the agenda. And as a result, 60 million people died. Almost 14 million in concentration camps. 6 million were Jews. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. When you look at Russia, most Russians were peaceful as well. Yet the Russians were able to kill 20 million people. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. When you look at China, for example, most Chinese were peaceful as well. Yet the Chinese were able to kill 70 million people. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. When you look at Japan prior to World War II, most Japanese were peaceful as well. Yet Japan was able to butcher its way across Southeast Asia, killing 12 million people, mostly killed with bayonets and shovels. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. On September 11th in the United States, we had 2.3 million Arab Muslims living in the United States. It took 19 hijackers, 19 radicals to bring America down to its knees, destroy the World Trade Center, attack the Pentagon, and kill almost 3,000 Americans that day. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. So for all our powers of reasons and us talking about moderate and peaceful Muslims, I'm glad you're here. But where are the others speaking out?
Is truly a moderate Muslim. She needs to stand up for women's rights. She needs to stand up for those who beat women, who kill women, who maim women, who genitally mutilate women. She needs to stand up and speak out about the kidnapping of the girls by Boko Haram that you are not speaking for. You are taking your place while you have access to the media, and you are here obviously because of your deception and lies and what you did at the Heritage Foundation, so you can point the light to the issue of the Islamic. And thank you so much for bringing that out. Use that opportunity to speak about where are the girls that were kidnapped by your own co-religionists. As a Muslim woman, it is people like you who needs to stand up.
Ms. Ahmed, we'll give you the last word.
I have been speaking out against Boko Haram kidnappings. We have been. And I just want to clarify one point. You mentioned about me being friends with the convicted terrorist. I've never even met him. I saw him once at the court. And I was a Muslim community spokesperson in Oregon. And obviously, a mosque burned down right after his arrest. So we were suffering a lot of hate crimes.
Please. There's plenty of information that people can easily find on Google by just typing your name.
Well, I'm telling you the truth from my side. I'm sure there are a lot of people say a lot of things.
You and the word truth need to be in the same sentence, Saba. Let's be very clear about this.
Well, I think you're misguided, and I think you're the ones who needs to hear the truth from Muslims.
I'm very clear, and I don't mince words, and I don't beat around the bush, and I know my facts.
All right,
Do you know any Muslims?
Yes, I do. A lot.
Here.
Remember, I was born and raised in the Middle East.
I know. I wrote about you. You're Noor Saman.
I'm very familiar with your writing.
How many Muslim friends do you have here in the U.S.?
I do have friends here in the U.S.
I'd
but
like
that's
to talk
beside
to
the
them.
point. That is
Who
beside
has
the
been
point.
guiding you?
That's beside the point. As a
You need to
patriotic
talk.
American, I use the opportunity that I have to shine
I'm
the
a
light about
patriotic
how I
American
can
too.
protect my fellow American citizens, because
Well,
I
I'm
am
protecting
an American
American citizens
first,
as
and my
well.
loyalty is for this country. And anything happens to any American, I'm the first person to stand up,
I'm an
defend
American.
them, fight for them. You are not. Your loyalty is somewhere else. It's about time we see more patriotism from the Muslim community and less terrorism.
Bridget, I'm an American, and I'd like you to defend me.
I defend people who are worth defending. I don't defend liars and deceivers. I defend patriots who love this country
I
and
don't
are
think
willing
it's
to put
fair
their
for you
lives
to
on the
be
line to protect it.
defaming me
You
and-
are not. Your loyalties are to defend a terrorist who wanted to blow up a Christmas tree lighting in Oregon and kill many Americans. Shame on you.
Bridget, every defense lawyer has to defend somebody, okay? I don't think you've studied criminal law
You
too well.
are an
But
activist.
anyways,
You are far more
yeah,
than just
I
a
am,
defense
because
lawyer.
I am
You are an
concerned about
activist
the
with shady
American national
friends
security
and shady character.
situation.
Let's take the gloves off and speak the truth, Saba. This
Okay, you don't
time,
have to
you're
scream at
dealing
me.
with
We can
Brigitte
talk
Gabriel. You're
politely.
not dealing with somebody timid that you can manipulate and talk over. Not
I
this
don't
time,
need to,
Saba.
but
People
you
like
seem-
you need to be put in their place. This is America.
Oh, really?
We love our
Put me
country
in
and
my
we will
place.
fight for our country and
I think
protect
you're the one who
her
needs
from
to be
people
put in place.
exactly like you and expose
God.
people exactly like you.
Wow, Bridget,
Yes.
you just sound very, very angry.
No,
I think you
I'm
need some
very
reality
passionate.
check.
I'm not
angry. I did want to make
Angry
a point.
is something
Ramadan's
completely
coming
different.
up, so please do visit a local mosque wherever you live. I hope you get to meet a few other Muslims besides me and learn some, meet some
I have
peaceful
a lot
Muslims.
of outstanding, wonderful Muslim friends.
Good,
Who
so go
are
talk to
very
them.
much different than you.
Okay, well, but I'd love to meet you too. Let's meet up here. You know, I think we need to talk to each other without screaming. And
We're
hope
not
to-
screaming. We are talking passionately.
Now
That's
you're
very
calming
different.
down, but from the beginning you were very, very loud, and I don't know what was going on. But now you're starting to calm down,
Because
which is good.
I don't allow liars to speak over me because I put the truth
How
out.
dare you
I
call
will
me a
not let you
liar?
go unchallenged.
You are so mean. Did someone ever
What
tell
are
you?
we, children? I'm a terrorism
You're
analyst, darling.
slandering
I
me.
debate you. You're a lawyer.
How-
Meanness has nothing to do with logic. We're having a
Bridget,
logical, factual conversation. So
you
let's
are
leave the little
slandering
girl
me
play that you're
for-
trying to pull aside. I'm a businesswoman. I don't play like
I know.
that.
I can see.
This has to stop now.
Ahmed, jump in here. I know you want to respond.
Yeah, absolutely. This is not about hurt feelings. It's about strategic discourse. The people that we see on TV
Strategic
are...
what?
Well, hold on, Christopher. The people that we see on TV are less than 1% of the Muslim masses. The gravamen of the discussion here is the vast majority of Muslim moderates that are offended from their role in a post-9/11 and in a conflict-oriented situation, which is at the apex of counterterrorism, at the apex of an engagement, of a discussion of hearts and minds. Of course, freedom of expression stands, and no one is asking the Danish government to stifle expression. But
Yes, they
freedom
are.
of expression,
Yes, they are.
hold on, Christopher. Freedom of expression and the responsibilities of discussion, the responsibilities of those with power and privilege to ensure that there is comity between different groups, a belated response by the government, and then a continuing of republishing and reprinting these cartoons. We have freedom of expression here in the United States, but the president and the major media have chosen not to engage. The Pope believes in freedom of expression, but he has condemned these cartoons.
No, he
It's
doesn't.
about
Okay,
strategic
Christopher, I want to let
He does
Christopher
not.
in here. Christopher, I want to
mean, what is this babble? The State Department has said that it apologizes and thinks these things are offensive, and it's done so without, as far as I know, any permission from the American people to say that we take that view. I'm glad to hear you say it's only 1% of the Muslim world that takes this opinion. In that case, why are we treating the leaders of these lynch mobs and bullying gangs as if they were representative of your religion?
That's a very good question.
And why is it that we can't get condemnation so easily or at all when, for example, Shia mosques and funeral processions in Iraq are blown up by Muslim fascists.
Christopher,
Isn't
the
that
vast
sacrilege
majority,
to you?
Ahmed Yunus, jump
the
in.
vast majority of Muslims condemn attacks on Shia communities, condemn attacks on Christian communities in Muslim countries.
Name one.
The Council on American Islamic Relations sent a delegation to Iraq to try to release Jill Carroll. We have done the same with Margaret Hassan. We engage continuously.
Hostage trading.
We were against the Taliban.
Wait a minute. I want to jump in here for
We don't need
both of
care
you.
to do. Excuse me, we don't need
hang
Islamic
on.
groups in America
Christopher,
doing
I got to
hostage
jump in
trading
here
in
because
Iraq.
the point is made here, and this comes up over and over again, that when we talk about the most radical of Muslims, they're the ones who get the attention. The whole of the faith gets painted with this brush by the kinds of pictures we're showing today of burning buildings. As awful as it is there a fair point being made here that this clearly is not representative?
Absolutely, and if we look at
Christopher, please.
Well, that's for Muslims to decide. If they want to condemn this, they can, but actually a lot of Muslim governments have instead, and authorities, have instead joined the condemnation of the cartoons and urged the Danish government to bring pressure on the free press in Denmark.
Because
it's absolutely outrageous.
They are opportunists, state actors and non-state actors that are taking this opportunity to pursue their ends is a different discussion. What we are discussing now is why would we offend the very identity of 1.2 billion people who are needed for us to end this era?
No, that's not the question. That's not the question at all.
Why are there anti-Semitic cartoons published all the time in certain Muslim press and Arab press? Let's talk about the anti-Semitic cartoons that are there all the time, and you don't see this kind of reaction from Jews who may be deeply, deeply offended.
You're right. We are all offended, not just Jews. We are all offended when there are anti-Semitic cartoons, and these dictatorships that use the other to galvanize the bases within their countries to support them in their efforts are acting contradictory to the interests of Muslims. We condemn that type of anti-Semitic behavior. We condemn it when it's against any other community, be it by Muslims
That wasn't
like
the
the Taliban.
question. That wasn't the question.
This is the same Europe
that wasn't what you were being asked.
This is the same Europe that had a genocide against Muslims, the largest genocide since the Holocaust. We have got to be strategic. We have got to ensure that we are not negligently bolstering the haters that are finding excuses for attacking.
I'm not just a potted plant here. He wasn't asked that question. He was asked why, when Jewish people or Christians, or the largest, in my opinion, the most important group in the world, those of us who don't believe in religion and claim the rights of the Enlightenment, when we're offended, you were asked, why don't we take the occasion to go and set fire to embassies of democratic countries or kidnap civilians? That's what you're being asked. And you're still claiming Muslims have a special right to be offended, and that is very offensive indeed.
Absolutely not. I am claiming that Muslims have an equal right to find human dignity in the way that they are treated in society. And Christopher, if you feel that there is an attack against you, you have the right to respond. That is the same freedom of speech that you're saying. The Muslims around
without
the
your
world,
permission, with your interruption, that's what I'm doing now.
Okay, gentlemen, time out here for a second. Time out. Christopher, I want to go back to the first point you made, and that is, how newspapers and news organizations make their decisions about this. And you mentioned, CNN's decision to pixelate these. You're right. I mean, partly based on fear of reprisals against our staff, but also partly based on